South African Students' Union is calling on government to urgently address the accommodation and security crisis at university campuses. It's also slamming the closure of the University of Zululand's KwaZulu campus following protests. Students at Unizulu took to the streets following the shooting of a student at an off-campus residence. For more on this, I'm joined by Minister of Higher Education, Science and Technology, Blade Nzimande. Very good morning to you, Minister. What's going on at the university?
Good morning, Jane, and to your viewers and listeners. I've been having some discussion with the chairperson of the University Council, and then we've agreed that I will be meeting with the full University Council tomorrow so that I am able to get a full briefing of the situation there. Part of the challenge, of course, has got to do with the state of some of the accommodation where students are forced to hire and stay in because of inadequate university-owned accommodation, and also the bigger problem of crime in the area, which affects the community, but also in the process affects the students. So by going there tomorrow, I am actually hoping to then get first-hand experience in my meeting with the council of the university first, which also all the stakeholders are represented, so that we can have a proper discussion and I'm able to understand and what is it that may need to be done immediately. But I do need to say, Jane, that as the department, we do have a program to actually address the issue of student accommodation. Each year we are adding a number of beds into our entire university system. Of course, we are not moving as fast as we can because resources are not available to be able to do everything within a short span of time. But nevertheless, there are programs and plans that we are looking into in order to come up with an effective 10-year program to be able to address this matter once and for all. And part of the challenge is that over the past 25 years, our universities in particular grew much faster than infrastructure was able to check up. So that is what we are dealing with.
Okay, but
so we understand what the students are saying.
Jumping in the light of what you're saying, that this campus is closed down and those students who do have accommodation are pushed out into dangerous territory.
Well, I unfortunately cannot be able to comment on that, Jane, because the decision whether to keep a university open or closed is a decision of the management, and management normally takes those decisions having taken into account what the situation is like. And often if they feel that the lives of students and staff are at danger, sometimes they close the institution, but I'm not the one to answer that because I'm not responsible for closing universities.
Okay, I want you to listen to this comment that we got from an interview we did yesterday with the leader of a student union, and he was basically outlining what students outside the Unizulu face in their off-campus digs.
The university is saying nothing, in short. In fact, the university is very reactionary. They released communique just yesterday, apparently in consultation with Minister Blade Nzimande, to close down the university and evacuate all students immediately as of yesterday. Now we ask these fundamental questions. Where must these students go if the area has already been deemed as violent? You are in essence sending students to their deathbeds because the university cannot accommodate all students. They don't have the necessary in-house residence to accommodate all students, and therefore students are now seeking accommodation within some radius around the university. And it should become the university's responsibility to ensure that even those areas where students are staying, their own students, are safe and are conducive for learning. And in fact, we have the inverse, where students who are staying there are not safe, they're being terrorized daily, nightly. It's been ongoing, in fact, for the whole year, for the past few years, and no one seems to be doing anything. It speaks to the broader crisis around student accommodation, which we are going to be taking on head-on in this country. The next fight, if you think fees must fall was what we're supposed to be talking about, the next fight will be about student accommodation.
Minister, what is your response to that? I mean, he's absolutely right that student safety is a basic human right.
Student safety is very important, Jane, but also we must understand it in its totality. Student accommodation is but one of the problems. The other part of the problem is that we are staying in extremely violent societies, and in which students also get caught up in that because they are part of that society and part of those communities. On the side of government, we are fully cognizant of the challenge of student accommodation. And as I have said, as government, we've got plans to actually address the issue of student accommodation going forward. Specifically in relation to University of Zululand, as I say, I am actually going to be getting a full briefing and have a discussion with the university tomorrow. I would not like to go into a debate with a student when I have not been able to actually talk to even the students. My first port of call will be the University Council, where also the students are actually represented, so that we are able to see. One thing that I'm able to say is that I am aware that the issue of student accommodation is even more problematic in rural universities like the University of Zululand. That is why one of the things that I have told myself I need to do is that in dealing with the issue of student accommodation, much as we must look at all the students, but the most urgent need is actually with the rural universities, because there aren't even options for better or reasonable private accommodation where students can be able to where students can be able to stay. And what happens in rural areas, sometimes you just find people just build something not much better than a shack because they want to make money and get rent, you know, from students, especially those that are supported by NSFAS. So I do want to actually prioritize rural universities.
Okay,
that's why I'm looking forward also to be having a discussion.
Are you also going to be including the security forces or the police in your conversations with the university? Because a lot of the violence levelled at these students comes from the off-campus digs, or it's certainly focused on those digs. And there's a satellite police station outside the Unizulu University. And clearly the police are not doing anything. The head of the student body there telling us that the police look the other way.
Absolutely. I understand. In fact, Minister Cele spoke to me yesterday and said he's going to the university today to actually address that part of the problem, the issue of high levels of crime in the area. And then I will be going to meet with the University Council tomorrow. We are in constant discussion with Minister Cele on a number of areas and challenges. But much more seriously, Jane, which I must also say, I had a meeting with the executive committee representing the vice chancellors last Friday. And one of the things we've actually agreed upon is that they, in the first instance, need to talk to me about what measures have they put in place to look into campus safety generally. I am approaching this matter also at national level, and I will definitely involve the Minister of Police in actually dealing with this particular matter. And we have set up a small team from last Friday to look at this whole issue of campus safety and safety for students, because it is indeed a priority matter that I am also attending to, because as government we do care. Contrary sometimes to what people say, we do care about the safety of the students. Our students are our future. They must actually learn under conditions that are conducive. That is why also, over and above all else, we have a policy where we have set minimum standards for private university accommodation that is private, that is used by students. That what are the conditions? It must be accessible to those with disabilities, it must be a learning space or a learning environment, and it must be safe. That is a big priority for government. That's why we've been putting these billions of rands that we are spending each year to actually build and acquire more beds so that students have got decent accommodation.
All right, Minister Blade. Nzimande, very good to talk to you, and possibly we'll speak to you after your meeting tomorrow.